Well, we're back in Paul's apartment, and we're going to start by making our Tarte Tatin, because it takes the longest to bake into the oven. Now, the Tarte Tatin is the classic apple tart made famous by the Tatin sisters and served in bistros and brasseries all over Paris. Now, we have these beautiful golden apples from Limousin, and all we're going to do is cut the ends off, make it a little easier to peel. You can peel them with a peeler. I like to peel them, of course, with a nice sharp paring knife. We get them down to the right size, take the cores out so that we can line them up in our special Tarte Tatin pan that you'll see later. And Paul is turning out our pastry dough right over there. Let's check and see what she's doing. A good batch of dough is the foundation for any successful Tarte Tatin. Pâte brisée is a simple, unsweetened dough made by combining flour and butter by hand and then adding just enough water to pull the dough together. When the dough holds without being too sticky, it goes into the refrigerator for 1 hour to chill.
So now I do something called fraisé.
Oui.
Fraisé, which means I'm just putting it together. Okay, and now I'm just going to collect it.
Yep.
This is it. You see, I don't really want to work it more than that.
Beautiful. So now we're going to take the tart dough, wrap it in some plastic wrap, put it in the refrigerator for about an hour so that the glutens relax and we don't, when we roll it out, we don't have such a tough dough.
Yeah.
So while our dough rests in the refrigerator, we'll start with our caramel and with our apples. Now, I've put a couple of tablespoons of butter and about a tablespoon more sugar than butter into this Tarte Tatin pan. This is absolutely gorgeous. Is this a family heirloom or something that you picked up?
It looks like one, but
it's beautiful.
I put it into this condition.
You make a lot of Tarte Tatin.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous. You notice no handle, so it goes in and out of the oven. It's very, very French culinary tool. Anyway, we have a nice diffuser on a medium heat.
Which is a heirloom. That is a family heirloom.
That is was that your grandmother's?
My grandmother's, and you cannot find them anymore because they are forbidden.
Yes.
You know.
So we take that and we want to make sure that we have a nice medium heat under there. We need to make our caramel and we want it to be nice and dark, but what we don't want to do is scorch it. So there really is a little yin and yang here. I think we've got a nice medium heat
I think you
underneath.
want this on hand because if you touch it, you're going to
burn.
Very
hot.
Very, very hot here.
I want to also make sure that my apples
then you can also
stop
it with lemon. If you want a drop of lemon.
One of the nice things is you can squeeze a few drops of lemon, keep it from burning too much, and also keep it from forming crystals. And just a few drops of lemon, put it into the sugar, just to prevent it from forming rocks. A little chef's trick.
But we call this astuce also.
Astuce, a tip.
It's a smart, it's just being smart. A smart
something I try and do as often as possible and rarely succeed. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful,
It's a work of, I say, to make caramel, it takes one thing, courage. Because you have to wait, and then all of a sudden, and then you have to say, no, no, that's what I want, and leave it there.
You know what I love about this technique, especially with the Tarte Tatin, unlike any other caramel dessert, is it's extremely forgiving. Because the caramel actually breaks and it comes together again when the juices boil.
Exactly.
So whether or not it holds together or not, no
and that's
big deal.
probably why we want to use golden delicious apples because they have enough humidity in them.
In the United States, I use a red delicious apple for making Tarte Tatin because for this type of baked dessert, it holds together the best.
I see.
And gradually over the course of 10-12 minutes on medium heat, the butter and sugar will melt together and begin to turn blonde, and then brown, and then dark brown caramel. You can almost see it happening here, even as we talk. It's just gonna keep getting darker and darker and darker. It's a nice walnut brown. We're ready to add our apples. And what I like to do is start with these nice cut ends in the interior. And I hold the first couple.
Yes.
After a while, they will stand up by themselves.
They're going to change shapes anyway.
Yeah. There we go. Whoop. Just like this. Would you turn the heat down
I was going to say, can I turn it off? I think.
Yeah. We just let it go. And I always put a couple, I don't know about you, I put a couple on top.
No, I don't, but it's a good idea.
Because they soften, and then when more space opens up, I slide them in.
Yes,
and we
because I don't have enough dough to cover this.
We'll stretch it, we'll make it work and let it go into the sides.
But it's amazing how much it's going to shrink.
It is amazing. And now one of the other little trick that I like to do.
Astuce.
Astuce. I place a bowl on top, and what that does, it holds in the heat, allows the juices to drip into the pan faster, so I can start cooking it again.
Can I borrow this
oh, yes.
astuce from you?
Oh, it's yours. We let that cook for about a half hour, 40 minutes. Juices drip down, then they evaporate. Then we're ready to bake. Now, after a grand total of about 20 minutes, you can see how the apples have given off all of their juice, or a lot of juice. And we're actually able, these are soft, so they've cooked a little bit, and the apples in the bottom have softened up a little bit, so we can actually put those in. And then this last one.
And of course, the more apples in the tatin, the better the tatin.
And now, we leave the cover off and let all those juices evaporate.
You know, once I made 100 kilos of jam, and we had caramel all over. It took me 2 years. 2 years to get rid of the sugar.
While the apples are cooking, roll out your dough on a cold, floured work surface. It should be about 1.5 inches in diameter larger all the way around than the pan you've decided to cook the apples in. Oh, this is just beautiful. Gorgeous dough.
It's amazing how the apples have reached exactly the right size now.
Yes. And now what we do very carefully is tuck this all the way down into the bottom of the pan, because the Tarte Tatin is an apple tart that's cooked upside down and served right side up.
You know the story? Well, it's a legend, but...
Le Tatin sisters? Tell me.
That it fell. They had prepared a classic tarte aux pommes, and it fell. They picked it up, and since it was on the floor, they picked it up to put it back together. They had to put it the other side around, or they forgot it on a stove, and it was at the beginning of the 20th century. They were cooking with big stoves, you know, and it just caramelized over the stove because they forgot it there. And actually, I think it's a combination of both stories.
It's fabulous.
Accidents, you know, accidents are always the invention.
Absolutely. Now, what I find most interesting is that I also make this both ways. I'll sometimes make it with a puff pastry. Right. So that it's puffed. But a lot of times I find pâte brisée, which what you made here, is my best all-purpose dough because it's so strong.
Exactly.
You know, and I just, wonderful. And this goes into the oven about 450, 475?
Yes. Oh, yes. This is, 230 is high. It's about the utmost. So maybe I'll turn it down a little bit. No?
Fabulous. And it only takes about 20, 30 minutes for that to cook because we've already cooked the apples and the caramel.
So we're just waiting for the dough to get cooked.
Exactly. Then invert. The Tarte Tatin is a very traditional French dessert. Golden delicious apples are used almost exclusively here. The pâte brisée crust that Paul made is very sturdy, and I think makes for the best tart. Some cooks prefer a puff pastry, and if you want to experiment with different varieties of apples, try any quality baking apple.